Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another EPP webinar. My name is Marta. I'm a member of the events marketing team at EPP, and today it's a great pleasure to have with us Andy from Epic Conjoint. Before I hand over to Andy, I would like to explain to you how this webinar works. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. You can submit your questions anytime by clicking the Q&A button on the control panel. If you prefer to make a live question, you can click on the raise hand button. We will unmute you and you can speak directly. This webinar will be recorded and will be available afterwards on EPP Prime for EPP Prime members. Thank you for your attention, and now I would like to hand over to Andy.
Thanks very much. Okay, so I'd like to start off by just introducing myself. So my name is Andy O'Brien. I'm a director at Epic Conjoint, specifically looking after FMCG and retail. I'm 22 years in the FMCG industry. I've had many roles, from product development through to frontline sales, and you can see where I've been in the past, both from a data perspective and from, as I say, from a branded perspective. I currently have two roles at the moment. So yes, I'm the director at Epic Conjoint, but I'm also now lecturing in pricing at the business school in UCD in Dublin. So what I'd like to cover today is to talk a little bit about who's Epic and what do we know about pricing, talk around the background to this study, the approach we took, bring you through some of the results and the key learnings. So kicking off, a little bit about Epic. So Epic's mission is all around enabling business leaders to make tough decisions with confidence in 7 days. So we are a rapid conjoint business, and we really focus in that area. We were founded in 2017 by Matt Johnston, who was a telecoms pricing expert, and following our setup, our algorithms were accredited by PyMC Labs, who are Bayesian mathematicians, and generally the right place to go to get your algorithms sense checked. And since then, we've now completed over 900 pricing projects across the globe, across multiple verticals, and specifically within CPG and FMCG, we've worked with most of the big brand houses. Where we started off was really in the standard conjoint and choice-based methodologies like MaxDiff, and also within pricing using the methodologies like Van Westendorp and Garber-Granger. But as the client base started to build for us, we started to recognize that FMCG OTC really needed a solution which was much closer to how the shopper was making decisions in store. And so we started to develop specific types of conjoint analysis, which allowed us to replicate the fixture or the e-com environment to make sure that the results from a conjoint reflected what was going to happen in the marketplace. You can see now we have pallets, chest freezers, shelves, all these different varieties, and we're constantly innovating on this depending on what our clients want. So that's a little bit about Epic and what we do. And so now I want to talk about the study itself. So the background to the study is probably familiar to anyone who's working in brand or own label or retail. So the economic challenges that happened during COVID and post-COVID saw inflation driving branded prices up. And so consumers started to have to reconsider their baskets. And because of that, private label has continued what was already a growing trend, but has really accelerated that position. When you look across the globe, you can see that own label has really accelerated its growth across categories in each country. And specifically where we're talking today about UK, which is part of Western Europe, you can see where own label is super strong in its role within retail. So really what we wanted to discuss is, what is the right index for brands versus own label? How does it differ by category? And how would you even go about working it out for your brand? So everyone will talk about a brand tax or a brand premium, but very few people would be able to really point out exactly what it is for their brand and what they can charge for their product. And that's really why, or where we're going to come to now to discuss Conjoint and why it's a very valuable methodology to be able to understand what is your right pricing index, either versus other brands or versus own label. So how would you define a price premium? So a price premium is effectively what you can charge to deliver the same number of units as your competitors sell in the marketplace. So if we assume for these three brands here that they all have to deliver 100 units, and to understand at what price do they need to be at to deliver those 100 units? Not more or less, but exactly 100 units. So in this example, we're saying the price for a product A is €5, the price for product B is $5.80, and the price for product C is $3.80. So they're the prices that if they put them in the marketplace, they will deliver 100 units. And you can see underneath them the calculated price premium that you can charge for each of those products, with the lowest product being the index of 100. So that's effectively what we're trying to understand in the real marketplace. Okay, now this is a very difficult thing to do live in store, so you need to have a different methodology to be able to isolate this true price premium. So why is Conjoint used in this case? So Conjoint allows you to test multiple price points and multiple pricing scenarios against a target customer group, which should reflect the marketplace, and allows you to see what market share you will deliver at each of those price points. So as the example here, we start off with all three products at €5. We learn the volumes that each of those products will deliver at €5, and then we start to adjust. So in the next case, we test product A at 5.10, and the others remain at 5, and we look at what the changes are to the volume. And because some prices are going up and some are remaining static, other products become more competitive or less competitive. And we can keep doing that, as I say, with Conjoint. You can test that, and we'll test each of the price scenarios for each of the products. You're then testing somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 different scenarios, different price points, and then you're able to generate price elasticity curves for each of the products in the fixture, and you're able to then isolate exactly what price point do you need to be at to have that equalizing volume, then be able to calculate your price premium. Okay, so that's a little bit about the methodology of how you get to a price premium. So what we've tested in this situation was specifically the home care category in Tesco. We took Tesco's pricing and we took Tesco's own label products. So we took some of the leading brands in toilet tissue, laundry liquid, laundry capsules, and then household cleaners. So I've chosen those because of my background. I worked in laundry in the UK, so I have a lot of familiarity with the brands from the past, but also because it's a heavily branded sector, yet the functional delivery of the own label is actually very comparable. You know, it's not a purely emotional claim from these brands. It really is functionally visible if these products can deliver or not deliver, you know, a clean wash or a clean surface or a fragrant wash, let's say. So that's how the fixture looks. And then when you actually execute Conjoint in here, you'll see that the fixture starts off with one set of prices, and then each scenario will have the prices changing. So in this case, there's 3 different price points there for that product, and the consumer has to each time reassess the fixture and then make the right choices for them in this fixture. And you're able to then work out, okay, at what point does their brand loyalty drop away, or at what point did it become more price sensitive, etc. So that's how it looked. It's the methodology we talked about. So what we tested was in the UK, we tried to get a customer base that reflected the marketplace from a till roll perspective. We also had a mix of family sizes and basket sizes, and also regionally across mainland UK. Now we could go into further depth on this, and we can cut the data by any one of these elements, but we don't want to go down a rabbit hole. So we'll just keep it quite top line at this point. You can see 347 respondents generating 3,500 different responses to different scenarios presented to the customers. So now let's talk a little bit about the results. So as part of the survey, we also asked some questions about people's perception of own label to be able to understand, is there differences in behavior depending on your perception of own label? And as you'd expect, there was. So we split out, brand lovers to an own label evangelists based on their response to some questions. So here you can see there was 1% of people claim that the brands were far superior to own label, and clearly they were not the sort of people who would be switching to own label. Then you've got people who would show that it's an inferior product with lower quality ingredients. Then you've got the middle group who you can probably interpret this both ways in terms of positive or negative for own label, but they believe that it's made in by the same people in the same factory as the leading brand. Now, it doesn't say if they think it's higher quality or lower quality, but they're saying it's from the same companies. Then you've got those people who are evangelist about own label. So the first group saying that they believe it's the same product, but just with a different label. And then there's this final group who believe it's not the same product, it's even better than the leading brand. So we wanted to see then, okay, well, if that's what you say about own label, how does that actually play out? So when people believe that that own label is the same as brand, they're only willing to pay a 48% premium for those leading brands. Okay, well, now 48% premium is still a very, very big number, but this is what they've actually delivered with their choices in the Conjoint survey. When you look at the people who think that brands are far better than own label, they will pay even more. And this leads me to the example here from Kellogg's, which is them outlining clearly they do not make own label. They want to make sure they distance themselves from the own label equivalent, because clearly you can charge more the more you can split that perception. Okay. Next, when you look at how those negative views actually apply in purchases, and we've also looked between the north and south of the UK to see what's the differences in opinion there. And there is a difference between north and south. The fact is that southerners prefer to buy brands, and those ones in the south are purchasing brands 7% more often than those in the north. And then specifically when we look at those people who have negative views on own label, we saw that play out even further. With regards to sociographic split, you also see a big difference between those people who have, let's say, a lower basket spend, weekly basket spend, versus the higher basket spend. Again, those people who are spending more in store, they're more comfortable spending more on brands and are more willing to select brands as well. So clearly, this own label has let's say, a home territory of lower basket spends, which brands have now distanced themselves quite far away from, and need to understand how do they get back into those baskets. And own label is obviously using that those foundations to build further up into those more premium households. So I'm going to look now specifically at this example on toilet tissue. So we have the current prices, which were the prices at the time in Tesco. And we took 4 products. Now, I actually tested 5 products in total, but these ones had direct competitors in the own label, on the own label fixture. So we took those products, and the first thing we wanted to understand was what was the optimal price. So the optimal price is not necessarily the price or trying to isolate the price premium, but this is what is the optimal price to maximize what I've chosen as retailer sales value as the point to optimize, because I don't have visibility of gross margins and contribution margins for these products. So what's the optimal price, and then what's the variation? So you can see in this case, 2 of the products are overpriced, so the Cushelle Quilted and the Tesco Luxury, and 2 of the products are underpriced. So they have scope to increase their price, whereas the other 2 should actually be decreasing their price. When you actually apply that into the model then of what happens if we change to those optimal prices, you can see the impact on the category. So significant increases in value for those brands, and ideally then for the category, would play out. And I've also highlighted there, so what is the actual optimal brand index price versus its own label equivalent. So you can see that the more premium ones is 125, and Andrex and the Tesco Luxury is actually 107 index. But really the point I wanted to raise here was the fact that just by making some of these alterations, you can drive much more value into the category, which ideally your retail partner is very excited that you might bring this type of news to them. I'm also now going to look a little bit at the laundry liquid. So you can see here, the laundry products that I actually included, all of them are overpriced. Even the own label product is overpriced. Again, versus optimizing the maximum retail sales value. So the actual optimal prices you can see are much lower. You can see them sort of significantly lower priced. And when you look specifically at Ariel, you can see this is the, let's say that the elasticity response curves. So you can see the total RSV driven by the volume underneath. So the purple line is the retail sales, and the green blocks are the volume sales. And you can see as the price increases, the volume drops away. But in some cases, the price that's being charged for the product is enough to offset that. But the current price of this product is £7. So you can see all the way to the left of the curve and to the right, there's an opportunity for Ariel to change their pricing to potentially earn either higher margin or greater penetration. Okay, so optimal doesn't necessarily mean you've got to go to the lowest price point, but it's at least to understand that where you are now potentially is not the optimal position. When I look through the other ones, and I know if you're involved in this category or working on these brands, these numbers will probably be more interesting to you or more relevant. But you can see just the differences as we go down through each of the subcategories to identify, at what points should prices change or how close are we to optimal. I think the thing that's probably most interesting is that there is a lot of red on this. Generally, it's related to the brands who've probably taken quite significant increases since 2022. Also, you have to remember that in a lot of cases, people's pricing structure and indexing was probably not based off any science, but was either matching a competitor or just trying to stay below an emotional price point. And again, part of the point we're talking about overall is that just because of where your price is now, there's probably opportunities for you to go in either direction from your price point to still be able to improve your brand's performance. But you've got to really understand like what is the correct price point, and not just basing it off assuming your competitor knows what the right price point is or that own label knows what the right price point is. And then when you just look back at the categories at a macro level, there is still scope for these products to increase in their price and still not have a huge impact on their retail sales value, because the price increases can offset the volume declines. But when you're looking to optimize your pricing, it's probably not going to be about continuing to increase your prices unless all competitors are moving in the same direction at the same time, which can happen, but generally everyone's price changes are quite independent of each other. And so in this case, I'm just sort of highlighting, look, between own label and brand, everyone still has scope for more, but you really want to look at, if you want to drive volume and bring customers back into these categories, then you need to make sure that your pricing is actually based on let's say consumer willingness to pay, and not just on benchmarking or historical. So just want to summarize then some of the key learnings that we've gone through today. The first one is that, look, their pricing opportunities are littered across the fixture, but you need to be able to understand how you can isolate those and actually let's say uncover them. Then second point is around you have unique consumer groups within your brand, and understanding how and when those people either decide to buy or decide to opt out of your brand is quite important. It's obviously very difficult when you're working in national chains, national retailers, where you can't change prices or can't run offers to specific groups unless it's format based. So you need to look at things like club card or loyalty club vouchering to be able to isolate those different groups, like northern women in the case of examples I showed there, or people who are spending below €50 or £50 per person per week. To isolate those people and voucher them slightly differently to how you would voucher these other groups who are more favorable to brands. The next point is around communication. As I mentioned, that Kellogg's example, you've got to be investing in marketing to promote the differences that exist between your brand and own label, like allowing own label to continually creep up and be treated as not only equal but better, or delivered, or created and packed, etc., in the same factory by the same people, etc. You don't want to have that level of overlap in the consumer's mind. So you need to invest in that to try and separate that out. And then the last piece is around mapping your product's pricing. So you need to understand where your product should be priced and stop. What I've said is flipping the coin at the moment. Too much of this is generally done based on historical or competitor benchmarking, or just trying to reach a price point that we think is the most valuable price point, but it's not really understanding the consumer's, let's say, perception of your category or perception of your brand and the willingness to pay that they have for your brand. So move away from this gut instinct and invest in understanding the science behind where your product should be placed. Okay. So that's a summary then of the work that we did on home care. So I'd like to hand it over to questions. If people have some questions or some points to make, I'd be really keen to answer them.
Okay, so I guess we have one question here. So was this base prices or did you test promotions too?
Yeah, it's a good question. So in the example that I've shown here, we specifically just tested base prices. You can test promos, and I can see also when I'm talking about some of those optimal price points, that does ignore the need to set your base price at a certain level that allows you to discount either percentage or to even price points with your retailers. So this was specifically base price, assuming everyone wants to get more base business and less promo business. But clearly, if you're going to optimize for a base price that allows you to run a deep high-low strategy, etc., then that would have to be taken into account, and you'd have to build your test or your survey or your methodology around that, around promos and base.
Great. Let's see if there's any more questions. We still haven't got any more questions, so well, I think that's all for today, Andy.
Thank you.
Thank you for this excellent session. The session will be is recorded and will be ready in a few days, and you can see it on the webinars and presentations section on our website. And lastly, I would like to take this chance to announce that we'll be in Amsterdam in October for the Global Pricing Forum. We hope to see you all there. You can visit our website events.pricingplatform.com to find out more about the agenda and the speakers. And I'll see you there. Thank you and have a nice afternoon. Bye.
Thank you.